Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Zena Suissa, President of Resonance Executive and Team Coaching. We coach, we do consulting, we do training. Today, I have a wonderful guest who really, as I just told her, motivated me because she knows how to help you reinvent yourself, stand out, and become a great entrepreneur. And I'll tell you why I say that in a few minutes. But first, Dorie, with your permission, I'd like to talk a little bit about you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay. So Dorie Clark is an adjunct professor at Duke University and the author of Entrepreneurial You, Reinventing You, and Stand Out, which was named the #1 leadership book 2015 by Inc. magazine and one of the top 10 business books of the year by Forbes. A former presidential campaign spokeswoman, the New York Times describes her as an expert of self-reinvention and helping others make changes in their lives like she's helped me. A contributor to the Harvard Business Review, I've read all her articles, I think. She consults and speaks for clients including Google, Microsoft, the World Bank. Best-selling author, public speaker, branding expert, Dorie is passionate about helping others, and you certainly have made an impact on you. I've said it again. I know that, you know. So welcome, 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 Dorie. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena.
I forgot to say this is another episode of How Does This Resonate With You? So people, please write some comments and tell me how this resonates with you. So I'm going to start off with a quote that I found in your book by Steve Jobs. We are here to put a dent in the universe. And I think that's your underpinning. I think that's what you want to help people do, to make a dent in the universe. Also in an article, and I know the work by Stu Friedman, a professor at Wharton, he wrote, the people who are most successful in terms of having a significant impact on the world are those who embrace other parts of themselves rather than forsake them. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I thought was very interesting about Stu Friedman's work is he has a concept that he talks about called the four-way win. Yep. And specifically, he's kind of operating in the realm of work-life balance, that sort of thing. And he is pinpointing something pretty fundamental, which is that obviously there's really not enough time in the day for everything. You just can't do it. Yeah. And so with a four-way win, the concept is how can you essentially kill two birds with one stone? How can you have these different areas of your life where you want to excel? You know, you want to be good at work and good at family and good at health and good at community or spirituality or things like that. And really the only way that we can successfully make time for them is not to have, 6 hours a day of this and 6 hours a day of that, because eventually you run out and you have to be sleeping anyway. Yeah. But instead, it is trying to make sure that you are doing something that counts in both areas. Mm-hmm. So specifically, it would be something like, how can you do fitness with your spouse? Or how can you go to a community meeting with your friends? And things like that enable you to better use your time to accomplish multiple goals, which I think is very smart.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's start with your books. And I'd like to touch on each one a little bit. So your first one, you wrote a book called Reinventing You, Define Your Brand, Imagine Your Future. You wrote that in 2013. I noticed you write a book every 2 years, by the way. That's what I remember. I know that, 2013, 15.
I'm gonna stop now, though.
Oh, you gonna stop?
Not forever, but I do not have another book coming out in 2019. I decided there was enough.
But that was great. Every 2 years is amazing. So what does it mean to reinvent yourself?
Well, fundamentally, the way that I think about reinvention is that we either have what I call capital R reinvention, the kind of big picture reinvention that we're sometimes forced to do, sometimes choose to do, but it's a kind of big disruptive change. And then there's the lowercase r reinvention, which is the smaller changes, the kind of smaller day-to-day pivots that hopefully, if you do it regularly, if you make it a practice, can actually make career transitions be a little bit less traumatic. Reinvention fundamentally is just, how do you adapt? How do you change with the time? And sometimes you have to, if you're laid off like I was, or things like that. Sometimes you want to because you get bored or you're looking for a new challenge. But it is a kind of fundamental aspect of the fast pace of contemporary life. So ideally, we do have to get good at it.
Yeah. You also wrote a couple of steps how a person could reinvent themselves. Can we go through a couple?
Yeah, absolutely. So specifically, I forget what you're talking about, but I can come up with something. So a couple of steps. Let me first start out with the kind of three prongs of how I understand reinvention, and then we can get more specific if there's a particular thing that you're after. But broadly speaking, the way that I conceptualize reinvention is this: 3 steps. The first is it's important to get clear on what your current brand is, because everybody has one already. Everybody's starting from somewhere, and it's very hard to hit your destination if you don't know where you're starting. So number 1 is gaining that clarity on what your brand is. Number 2 is then painting that future picture of what you want your brand to be. So creating the vision, understanding what the gap is. What is the distance between where you are now and where you want to be? And you may need to map out, okay, I should be taking these classes, or I should be learning these skills. And then finally, it's about keeping it up. It's about what I call living your brand, because reinvention is not something that you do once and then you just don't have to do it forever. It's kind of a continual process of how are you showing up in the world? How are you conveying your new identity to other people?
And your first one, when you talk about knowing yourself, the self-awareness, recognize your brand, you talk about asking people to come up with some adjectives about you. 6 people, couple of adjectives. I picked that up in your book, by the way. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. I call it the 3-word exercise, and it's sort of a very short, pithy way of getting a sense of what other people view as most distinctive about you. Yeah,
and you get to know yourself. And self-awareness is the key. For me, self-awareness is the key. You then built on that, and you wrote a second book 2 years later, I have to say 2 years later, Stand Out. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk about 2 testimonials that were given. There were many, by the way, but these 2 stood out for me. Dorie Clark teaches you how to become a recognized expert in your field. Buy her books, people. Leading to more opportunities, income, and impact in the world. And this one is really cute. Dorie is a thought leader, absolutely, and how to be a thought leader. She's an expert in how to be an expert. Her book offers clear tips on how to stand out, whether you're a blogger, a rocket designer, or a laundry machine reviewer. I thought that was really cute. How does one make a name for themselves? Because stand out is really making a name for yourself.
Yeah, so fundamentally, when it comes to making a name for yourself, or the terminology I like to use to become a recognized expert, is three pieces. And this is something that I really learned through the course of writing Stand Out, and in the years since, when I actually developed an online course about it called Recognized Expert. But fundamentally, what I realized is that the 3 most crucial levers are these. Number 1, it's content creation. Number 2, it is social proof. Number 3, it is your network. And the reason that these are the 3 things that are important: content creation is essential because basically people need to understand what your ideas are. I mean, it seems pretty basic, but they can't think, oh, you're brilliant, you're such a great thinker, if they don't have any idea what your ideas are. So somehow you have to publicly share them. Number 2, the social proof part, is basically like, what is your credibility in the marketplace? Do you have affiliations? Do you have titles? Do you have a book of clients? So that people can look at that and say, oh, I guess it seems highly likely that she knows what she's talking about. If you have that, if you sort of pass the smell test, as it were, then they're at least willing to listen to you. And so that's very important. And then the third is your network, because of course, if you have a group of people who believe in you and believe in your ideas and are boosting you, that is going to be very helpful. And you also have them even earlier in the process, because they are the people who can help advise you. This is a good idea. Follow this one, not that one.
What would you say would be key? Blogs, podcasts, interviews? What do you think?
I think any of the above, really, for the reason that it is about sharing your ideas. The content really doesn't matter. I mean, sorry, not the content, the format doesn't really matter. It's about whatever is most comfortable to you, and it's about what your listeners, your intended target audience, is going to be most receptive to. Those are the pieces that I would say, but I don't think that one category is universally better than another.
Okay, but would you say that you should stick to one, kind of like perfect it, and then go on to the next one?
Well, I think there's something to be said for it. You don't want to pull yourself in too many directions where you're doing sort of a half-hearted job at everything. However, if you do have the bandwidth, it can be quite efficient. For instance, you could do a video interview of somebody and then say, well, I already did the hard part, which is booking the interview and doing the interview. So now I could take a half an hour, get it transcribed by somebody, and then take the best quotes and turn them into a blog post. And then that way you're able, in a much more leveraged way, to be working 2 channels rather than just one.
Okay, to segue to your last book, Entrepreneurial You, which I think is the icing on the cake. Do you want to share a little bit about your book?
Sure. So Entrepreneurial You is a book fundamentally about how do you create multiple income streams in your business? If you are an entrepreneur, if you're someone who aspires to be an entrepreneur, or even I would argue if you're somebody who works in a company and you want to keep doing it, but you'd just like to get a little bit more security in your professional life, it is a book about that. It's about how do you make sure that you are not dependent on one income stream. I know this personally because, I got laid off from my very first job as a newspaper reporter, and it hit me very suddenly. I went from being 100% employed and getting my regular weekly check to being 0% employed and having absolutely no money. And so I realized as I progressed in my entrepreneurial journey that real freedom comes from not being overly reliant on any one client or on any one form of income, because that way you have a lot better ability to weather storms, to be able to thrive no matter what the economic climate. And frankly, it gives you more upside as well. There's more possibilities for you to be making money.
So people, if you want to hear, and you told your story in your TEDx, I would encourage, what is the title of your TEDx?
So the TEDx talk that I did about my most recent book is called How to Future-Proof Your Career. I spoke at Tedx Lugano in Switzerland.
Right. But you did one previously, am I right, where you talk about being laid off? This is what the one I heard.
I think it was that one actually, yes. But I've done 3 TEDx.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's a variety to choose from.
You're amazing. 3 books and 3 TEDx. This is great. And what's in the future for you? What's in store for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, in the future, one of the things that I'm looking to do, a couple of years ago, I created an online course called the Rapid Content Creation Masterclass. And I think that one of the things that I'm most interested in doing next year, the course has really been tested and validated and it's done well. And so I'm looking forward to just kind of amping up the marketing of that and making that an even bigger feature of the work that I do.
Okay, terrific. And it'll be success because I think you're an amazing success. And thank you for sharing and supporting me. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Dorie. It's wonderful. I hope we meet up again. I know we've been in touch and you've been very supportive of me and I really appreciate that. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful holidays coming up. Stay warm. I don't know if it's cold or warm where you are, but it's freezing here.
Oh, thank you so much, Zena. I really appreciate you having me on. It's great to connect face to face. Yeah, thank you. I'll just mention briefly too, if any of your listeners are interested in some of the concepts of Entrepreneurial You, there's a free resource that they can get, which is the 80-question Entrepreneurial You self-assessment that helps you think through how to build multiple income streams in your own business. And that is available at dorieclark.com/entrepreneur. Perfect. Can you repeat that just one more time? Yeah, absolutely. It's dorieclark.com. It's DORIECLARK.com/entrepreneur. Okay. And aside from that, buy her books because they're great. I have your books, by the way. They're great. Thank you, Dorie. Be well. Take care. And let's touch base again. Thank you.